Hello, Will Thunder Talks here with another video. Today I'm going to explore and discuss the qualities I appreciate in a protagonist. I'm talking about stories, I'm talking about films, I'm talking about people in stories doing story fun things. So a lot of my protagonist brain has been tingling recently. As you may or may not know, I was watching Akira, and it's a really cool film, and it got me thinking about qualities I appreciate in protagonists, because I've been reflecting a little bit on my relationship with anime recently, and I thought, why do I even like the protagonists I like? So we're going to talk about that today. I'm going to go, I guess, start with my weebdom, and then branch out further into different protagonists of different medias and art forms, and maybe qualities I notice between them. So to start with, we're going to talk about the big three, the OG big three. Dragon Ball Z, or Dragon Ball GT, Dragon Ball Super, the Dragon Ball franchise, Naruto original series, Shippuden, Boruto, the new part of Boruto, Bleach, Thousand More Blood arc happened moderately recently, but it's still fairly old. It's kind of the old guard big three. Don't forget One Piece, of course. One Piece is still there. One Piece will be there forever and for eternity. But then I guess you've also got the newer protagonists, like in Jujutsu Kaisen, Demon Slayer, and My Hero Academia, probably the more modern big three. But I'm talking about the OGs because they strike, they hit me at a different point in my life. And I think that's important to talk about here. But what I like about all three of these protagonists, and it's something I think that I've probably subconsciously sucked into my personality, is their absolute enthusiasm in the face of challenges of all kinds. I think this is true for all of the big three, apart from maybe Ichigo from Bleach is kind of like, whatever, man, pretty often, relative to the other three I mentioned, Goku, Naruto, and Luffy from One Piece, are all very much like, damn bro, what's that about? And I think that curiosity trait is something I'm really here for. Being a curious, nice, helpful boy. I appreciate that. Qualities are good, but also, I guess, trying to see the good in people. I think that's something that's really impacted on my personality a lot when I think about protagonists I appreciate, but also people I appreciate. Definitely the weebdom has bled into my brain because, Goku's making friends with all his enemies. Piccolo was his enemy in Dragon Ball, try to kill him, and now Piccolo's just aura farms for all Dragon Ball Z. And then, we got Vegeta in the Saiyan saga, kills Nappa, is a bad dude, probably one of the most evil of all of the antagonists in Dragon Ball Z, really, when you think about it. He killed a lot of people on a lot of planets. Even kind of made buddies with Frieza a little bit in Dragon Ball Super. But always tries to be like, yeah, man, I'm excited to do the thing I care about. I'm excited to spar. I'm excited to get stronger. I'm excited to push my limits. I'm just really curious and open towards people. And I think that's a really attractive quality and trait. And I think that makes them quite charismatic, because I think, I guess a bit of a shonen trope is that a lot of the enemies are kind of misunderstood, right? I think it's a really common arc in all of the anime I've mentioned. I know One Piece the least out of these, but there's always been kind of a bad guy turned to good guy kind of arc, and then the protagonist's been but how do you feel about that? Thinking Naruto and Sasuke. Sasuke was a bad dude for a lot of Shippuden, and then at the end of Shippuden, he was I guess I'm going to be the Shadow Hokage for Boruto. But those kind of open qualities that welcome people in and help them feel understood and cared for. Also, to come out of the anime deep dive for a second, I think similar could be said about Lord of the Rings. I've been thinking about Lord of the Rings a lot recently, and Frodo's the protagonist. Frodo in Lord of the Rings anyway is kind of yo man, I'm curious about the world. I'm going to like be a curious, kind of interested dude. I'm going to be scared sometimes because I'm only a little hobbit and big spiders are spooky, and so are the riders. But with the buddies, they're like, yo, what's that about? You're really cool. There's an openness, there's like a warmth, there's a curiosity. I guess there's a curiosity that I see in a lot of protagonists that I appreciate. It's pretty cool, and I try and embody that. I try and be super curious about as much as I physically can. You know, my brain is chomping through kind of peptides right now. That's kind of a bit of a hyperfixation for me, as you probably have seen from videos earlier on. But I love to follow the trail of what grabs my interest with my nose, and I think about that a lot with what emotionally resonates with me and the protagonists we're talking about right now. Right? I think if I think about Akira, since I watched that recently, to come back into the anime sphere, Akira was a really interesting one for me because it was like a rough world. It was a rough, cruel world. If you all ever seen Akira, you'll know what I'm on about. If you haven't, watch it. It's really a really interesting mix of a lot of things. It's kind of a political coup drama. There's a bit of mystery in it, a bit of crime. Then it gets into fantasy god stuff. It's a dystopian future, an alternate Japan that took part in 2019, which I felt was really interesting timeline-wise, considering we had a pandemic begin in 2019 in the world, and that's when the world went to pot in the film made in the 80s. Really interesting prediction there from Akira. But I think the protagonists in that film, the kind of the brotherhood of the two main characters, and the guy in the red jacket, who I completely forgot the name of, he embodies a lot of those characters too. Curiosity in other people, you know, somewhat to his own gain often, but he's there to try and help people out. He's there to try and save his brother, who gets big psychic powers and does bad things, not to spoil the film. But yes, I think helpfulness, openness, and curiosity are kind of some of these qualities that are really dropping in my head that I appreciate in a lot of protagonists, and I think they're the kind of qualities that draw me into that character. But I guess then I think about some characters that are a little more complex and a little less clearly in those categories I've put before, and that they also kind of, they're interesting and intriguing. I think from a mystery point of view, I guess thinking about Vinland Saga, the protagonist for Vinland Saga, he went through a lot of stuff, but it was really interesting how Fairfin or something like that, I think his name is, went through the arc he went through to be a lot kinder and more compassionate, and I guess that speaks a lot to my own personal arc of how I felt when I was younger, where I was less compassionate than I might be now because I just had less information on what the world was like. And I think the arc these protagonists go through, I think they're relatable to a lot of people because I think a lot of people kind of come from this open childlike state, and then like life happens to them, and then I think it's very admirable to hold on to kind of some of the hope that comes from that childhood wonder. And I'd argue it's a good way to view the world. It's a good way to keep hope in your life. I think there's hope in all these protagonists. I think that's probably one of the qualities that really jumps out at me. And I think that kind of hope is what I think a lot of us really want right now. I think we all want to feel like there's a chance for a better tomorrow, even though certain media outlets or news and whatever might say otherwise. We want hope. We want to feel connected. I want somebody to care about us. I think a lot of these protagonists do that in these stories, and that's why they're such huge, important stories. But that's where I'm going to leave it today. You've been wonderful, and I've been Will. Good luck, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye-bye.